The Raptors just followed up their 30-win season with a basically dormant offseason, and while many are scratching their heads, the way this roster has been built over the past couple of years is actually really intriguing. So what can we expect from them in 2026? Are they good enough to compete in the East, and what can we make of their future? They were absolutely ravaged by injuries last year. Scotty Barnes missed 17 games, while RJ missed 24, Pirtle 25, Dick 28, and Quickly 49. That was supposed to be their core 5, and they played 8 games together. Don't forget, they also traded for Brandon Ingram mid-season, who didn't play a single game due to an ankle injury. Basically, they had a ton of different guys in and out of the lineup at various points, lacked any semblance of reliable half-court shot creation, and never did find a consistent groove. Over the 82 games, they ended up with a bottom 5 offense, average defense, and found themselves 11th in the East with a record of 30-52. Luckily, those struggles landed them the 9th overall pick where they selected Colin Murray Boyles. CMB's an incredibly interesting prospect, and it starts on defense. Because although he's a somewhat undersized big at 6'7", he makes up for that with great strength, tons of length, and most importantly, elite instincts. So there's potential for him to make an immediate difference as a defensive playmaker, whether that's being in the right spot as a helper, getting his hands on the ball, or of course protecting the rim. There's also potential for him to develop into an incredibly versatile man defender. He's quick enough to match up with wings or even fight through screens, with the strength to stonewall bigger forwards or even hang with 5s in the post. I'm really interested in a potential defensive duo between him and Scotty. Barnes is also 6'7" with decent strength, but he's got those freakishly long arms that allow him to imitate a traditional big. So he's one of those defensive chess pieces that can take on just about any role. He's mobile enough to stick with wings, and he's even a bit of a pickpocket. He's big enough to match up with most 4s and 5s and offer serious rim protection, although you definitely don't want him as the lone big in any lineup. Which really makes you think about what the Raptors plan to do with their lineups. Boyles doesn't really project to be an outside shooter at all, and Barnes is coming off a season where he shot 27% from 3. So in order for them to both share the floor with a 5, it's almost imperative that they're getting some sort of spacing back. With that said though, while neither of them are big enough to be anchor bigs or primary rim protectors on their own, together both can switch, both can hold down the paint, both can rebound, and maybe that front court pairing can recreate a traditional 5 in the aggregate, just with a lot more versatility. Along with basketball and content creation, another big passion of mine is the gym, and between working out, watching sports, and pumping out these videos, I really don't have time to cook for myself. Fast food is always an option, but that doesn't exactly align with my goals in the gym, so imagine when I found out about Factor. With Factor, in just a matter of 2 minutes, I can get a fully prepared meal on the table without worrying about preparation, cooking, or cleaning up. Just simply unbox, heat it up, and enjoy. The meals are fresh, never frozen, and there's a ton of variety. Maybe I want a high protein meal. Maybe I want calorie smart. Maybe I'm craving seafood. And Factor gives me the freedom to both choose and customize the meals. Eating clean has never been easier for me since signing up for Factor, and that's why I'm super excited to partner up with them to bring you guys a special offer. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code HoopVenueFB50 to get 50% off plus free breakfast for a year. You heard that right. That's code HoopVenueFB50 at factor75.com for 50% off plus free breakfast for an entire year. As far as Colin's offense goes, he's a solid, not great ball handler, and he's relatively quick for his position, but not for a 6'7" downhill creator. And that's his on-ball game. Whether it's a perimeter isolation or a post-up, he's looking to get to the rim. Without the burst or handle to create a ton of separation though, he relies a lot on his strength. And I do wonder how that'll translate to the added size and power of NBA defenders. He's got the touch to finish in a variety of ways, and he's a really good passer. I just don't know how much he'll be able to create for himself without some serious development to either his ball handling or mid-range game. To me, he's at his best away from the ball. Not only can he be a really dangerous slasher in off-the-catch situations, he's really good at big man skills like getting on the offensive glass or screening and rolling, where he's both a dynamic scoring and playmaking threat. Those are Jakob Poeltl's responsibilities though, and he's pretty much a lock to play at least 26 minutes a game. Not that Poeltl and Colin can't coexist, I think there are a ton of ways to use the two, it's just that Barnes then becomes the awkward guy, kinda just out there and not really spacing the floor, which means that Coach Darko's gonna have to make some tough choices. Barnes is obviously the centerpiece and probably ends up leading the team in minutes, which means that Boyles might play more of a specialized role, not really overlapping with Scottie, unless the Raptors really lean into the small ball stuff with Colin at the 5 and Scottie at the 4, or they plan to use their other offseason pickup, Sandro Mamukelashvili. Sandro's a very limited defender, but he's big enough to play the 5 as long as he's got length and athleticism by his side, which would obviously be the case. He hasn't really found a consistent role in the NBA. When he's on the court though, he's looking to let the 3 ball fly. In his 4 seasons, he's attempted about 6 threes every 75 possessions, solid volume, and he's hit those at about a 35% clip. So at the very least, he should offer some semblance of size and spacing, which is exactly what those 2 forwards need. From there, you just need some sort of shot creation from your backcourt without sacrificing the spacing, and that's where the Raptors potentially run into some issues. Scottie has a really unique offensive skill set that really hasn't been maximized by Toronto at all. Whether it's due to injury or just a lack of talent, he's essentially been forced into a lead creator role, and that simply isn't his game. In transition, his length really helps him get downhill, but in the half court, he doesn't have anything he can consistently turn to. Between a lack of burst and a limited handle, he's not always able to create clean driving lanes. His mid-range game is solid, it just isn't near accurate enough to lean on for consistent volume scoring, and like I said, the 3 ball is essentially non-existent. For those reasons, he's at his best playing off of a lead ball handler. He's got great feel for moving without the ball and filling out space, and he's a pretty good finisher at the rim. Most importantly though, he's a legitimately elite passer, especially in situations where he has an advantage to attack, and that makes him especially effective as a connector, whether he's playing off the catch or operating as the big in pick and roll. If he catches the ball against a tilted defense, you can bet he'll make the right reads to create the best possible offense. Then you can use his mid-post game to attack mismatches or punish switching. We just haven't seen the skill set put to consistent use because he hasn't played with that lead creator, and my question moving forward is whether or not the Raptors have this guy. Emmanuel Quickley obviously wasn't healthy last year. Based on what we've seen in his 71 games as a Raptor, I'm not out on him as a point guard running the offense. It starts with the perimeter shot creation. He's a really good pull-up 3-point shooter. In the last 3 seasons, he's one of only 10 players to attempt at least 3.5 off-the-dribble threes per 36 minutes while knocking down 36.5% of them, with similar production to names like Jalen Brunson or Kyrie Irving. He doesn't have the downhill scoring or in-between game of those guys, but he's got an awesome handle, which he pairs with a nice floater to at least pressure defenses inside the arc. And he's a pretty good passer who rarely ever turns it over, so he'll pretty consistently find the open man. Almost all of his offense comes in pick and roll, and the pull-up shooting demands attention, so that's how you potentially unlock both Scottie and Colin as downhill roll threats. Quickley's big flaw, though, is that he basically never gets to the rim, and that somewhat caps his ability to break down defenses as a scorer efficiently without getting unconsciously hot from 3. And for that reason, it's hard to see him serve as a lead creator for a playoff team. It's the exact opposite for RJ Barrett. He's an absolutely monster slasher, getting to the rim at will and generating lots of free throws, so teams have to send help when he has the ball. The problem is that he's not a super efficient finisher, so it's hard to justify building an entire offense around his downhill game like a Giannis or a Zion. And then there's just not much else. The in-between game is non-existent, he's not a pull-up shooting threat in any capacity, and he's just a solid passer. So this could cause some more issues regarding lineup choices. If you already have multiple playmakers in Quickley and Barnes, and potentially another non-shooter in the front court with Pirtle or Boyles, ideally you want your wings to be capable floor spacers. But if you go with Grady Dick or Jamison Battle for the added shooting, now you're losing another creator and basically abandoning the idea of getting to the rim. Go with RJ though, and you potentially miss out on some of that shooting, making it easier for teams to collapse on downhill action. I think that's exactly why they brought in Brandon Ingram, to serve as a sort of best of both worlds. He doesn't shoot the 3 ball with volume, but he's more than shown the ability to hit them. Over the last 4 seasons, he made about 40% of his catch and shoot threes, and defenses are never going to leave him open, so there's some inherent value when he's away from the ball. With the ball, he's just an absolutely surgical mid-range creator, with the handle, size, and touch to completely torch defenses as a shot maker. Also, I feel confident saying that he's simply the most underrated passer in the league. Not only does he have the vision, he can make basically every pass in the book, and he too runs lots of pick and roll, again unlocking the forwards. The only issue is that, similar to what I talked about with Quickly, Ingram basically never gets to the rim at this point. He's not using the mid-range as a counter, he's actively looking to get to it with each attack, which sort of caps his efficiency, and again, the amount of pressure he's able to generate in the half court. All that's to say, scoring efficiency is a major weak point for this team. The league average true shooting last year was 57.6%. Barnes landed at about 52%, with RJ a touch below 55%. For sample size purposes, I'll use Quickly's entire Toronto stint, just under 57%, and I'll go back to 2024 for Ingram, where he landed slightly above that 2025 average. It's worth noting that Barnes should be more efficient with added talent, and when he was in a role more fit for his skill set, he was closer to average. Still though, their entire top 4 produces, at best, league average efficiency. So unless you get a massive leap from one of the young guys, it's hard to imagine this team shooting at league average. This means that the best pathway to positive offensive production is dominating the possession game through second chance opportunities. To their credit, they've done that in the past, and it's not out of the realm of possibility, so I'll call them a slightly below average offense. On defense, things can get really interesting. Not only should Scotty and Boyles unlock a ton of versatility, Pirtle's still a pretty big presence in the middle. I also think Jacoby Walters got defensive upside, and with an offseason of putting on size, he could have a strong year too. The same goes for Jonathan Mobo, another big, athletic, tooly forward who can switch onto multiple positions, and Jamal Shed, who's too small to really switch, but provides that really pesky, physical pressure at the point of attack. Ingram's far from an impact defender, however, he moves pretty well for his size and has the length to make a difference within a strong team context, and I think Ochai Abaji's proven he can contribute to a solid team defense as well. All that's to say, if the Raptors decided to just punt their offense, they'd probably end up with a top 10 defense, maybe even a little bit better. Their lineup consists of a ton of nice defensive pieces, but in order to find them all minutes, they'd have basically no shot creation, shot making, or spacing, so it's about that balance. You've got to find minutes for Dick. Gotta use IQ as your primary ball handler. Need RJ's presence as a slasher. So the final product is a somewhat mid team on both sides of the ball. I like their length and depth on defense, and their roster is filled with great connective passers. But without a true lead creator, questionable spacing, and weak on-ball defense in most lineups, I'm not confident in their ability to be elite on either end, especially when taking into consideration their history of injuries. Overall, I think they'll be a below-average offense with an above-average defense. However, they could easily swing towards a defense-first approach and end up on opposite ends of the spectrum. That would lead to anywhere from the mid-30s to low 40s in win total. I'd expect them to fall a couple games below 500, so I wouldn't be shocked if they missed the playoffs again. I also wouldn't be shocked if they make the first round. I would be shocked if they won a series. Missing the playoffs wouldn't be the end of the world though. I want you to think about how good this team would look on paper if they had a legitimate lead creator at the helm, like a Damian Lillard or a Donovan Mitchell. Now think about how they own their first round pick in a stacked 2026 class. They've done a lot of things right with the way they've built the roster. They're just missing that number one. And if they're able to land a primary creator, along with all of these other pieces, the sky's the limit for Toronto's future.